Tennis is a game of errors. Even at the professional level, 70% of points end with somebody missing a shot. And it's even more from the vast majority of us who are average, everyday, amateur tennis players. And even just based on where you stand, you can make it more likely or less likely that your opponent makes an error. And one thing is for sure, the fastest way to improve is just get more errors out of your opponents. That's why this lesson is so important. We're going to be going through some super practical ways that you can position yourself to maximize the chances that your opponent will make more mistakes. So let's dive right into it. Let's break down this point and I'll show you how you can stand someplace on the court to cause an error from your opponent. So let's play through this point first. And at first glance, it just kind of seems like a nothing error from Medvedev here. This is from the 2021 Australian Open, by the way. But Novak did something very purposeful, very specific here that made an error much more likely from Medvedev. Let's break down exactly what it was. Novak got a little bit caught off guard by how short this ball was. He initially goes up with a topspin grip, thinking he's going to attack on this, and then right here, he switches to a continental grip, and he's like, oh shoot, like this is going to end up dropping a lot lower than I thought. So he kind of is playing this from kind of an awkward position, barely getting there by the second bounce. And when he plays this shot straight ahead, we're going to pause right before Medvedev hits, and we're going to draw some lines here and analyze exactly why Novak did this. So if we kind of take the ball and spread the furthest most shot that Medvedev could hit a winner down the line, and also show the furthest, kind of sharpest angle Medvedev could possibly hope to hit cross court, you'll notice here that Novak is right in the middle of those two lines. He's equidistant between those two potential attempts from Medvedev. And what's for a lot of players kind of confusing about this is Novak is not in the middle of the court. A lot of players assume that the middle is where you should stand to be in the center of what your opponent can hit, but that's not true. Because the ball is off to the side, the angles change. And so positioning wise, Novak has put himself in a perfect spot, and no matter which way Medvedev goes, visually, Daniil understands that Novak is just right in the center of his options, and that closes down, it shrinks the options. If Novak was in the wrong spot, then it would open up some kind of big obvious opportunity for Medvedev, and Medvedev would be much more calm and relaxed about this passing shot attempt. So let's back this up a little bit and actually go one kind of step deeper. If when Novak hit this shot, let's just say hypothetically that he targeted over here instead. Well, now to get to the correct spot, he needs to make his way over to this side of the court, because when Medvedev hypothetically would try to pass here, he'd have that angle. If he would try to hit an angle, he would have this angle. And so this green X ends up being in the middle of those two spots. So Novak essentially has the option, do I want to get to here or do I want to get to here? And Novak, as soon as he went to kind of uh-oh status with his forehand and he switched to a continental grip, the fact that he aimed for the red circle instead of the green circle is huge. By aiming for the right spot and then standing in the right spot, he maximizes the chances that Medvedev is going to try some kind of crazy thread the needle kind of ball, and in turn, the chances of him making an error skyrocket. They go through the ceiling. And so even though Novak here just kind of hit just like kind of a shovel, I mean, look, you can see him kind of like stumble as he hits this shot. And he's using a continental grip, and it's not anything special. I mean, this is probably a 40-mile-an-hour ball that he just kind of like shovels over the net. But the fact that he knows, A, if I aim here, I only have to stand here, and B, I know that this is the right spot for me on the court to hit, puts tremendous pressure on this shot from Medvedev, because he sees Novak shutting down his options, and that leads to an error. So remember this, when you're at the net, always position yourself a little bit on the same side of the court as the ball. And if you do that, then you'll increase the likelihood of your opponent making an error dramatically, because you're going to take away a lot of their options, make their passing shot attempts much less likely to go in play. Let's expand on that point example briefly, and it's going to show you exactly where to stand, when, and why to maximize the errors that your opponent makes. So this is the scenario. This is where Medvedev was a second ago. Remember, he was getting ready to hit a passing shot from the deuce side corner here. And I've gone ahead and drawn the lines here. Here's kind of like the extreme angle that he could hit. Here's the extreme down the line shot that he can hit. And so doing this makes it very visually obvious that standing in the middle at the net would leave what? A super, super easy passing shot, AKA less errors. If we force them into smaller targets, they're going to make more mistakes. So we know that the right spot to be is a little bit on the same side of the court, but here's where this gets really cool. If I draw a dotted line in between, halfway in between these two extreme shots, it would look something like this. If I try to just kind of split them more or less evenly or perfectly right down the middle, you can see here that, okay, this is the middle. So this is where Novak was, remember in the point example? What's cool about this is if we continue following this middle line back, now you can see what the baseline position should be like. So anytime you're at the baseline, remember, your rule of thumb is you want to be a little bit on the other side of the court as the ball. This is why it's flipped. Maybe you've kind of wondered this in the past if you've been studying tennis. At the baseline, you should be on the other side of the court. This is where you want to be to maximize your chances of getting to the ball and to squeeze your opponent's options or opportunities to make them as low percentage and as small as possible. This is how you get more errors out of your opponents. What's even better about this is a lot of times your opponents won't understand this whole relationship with the court, and when they see you not in the middle, on the other side, they're saying to themselves, I got you now. I see you're standing in the wrong place over here, and you're leaving me a nice big target down the line. And they'll try hitting down the line a lot, not realizing that you're actually in the right position. They're going for a more difficult shot, and now they'll make even more mistakes. Plus, if you watched part 1 in this series, when they do go down the line, you have a nice, easy target cross court. You can get them on the run. They'll make even more mistakes. This is how, based on where you stand, you can draw and stack errors throughout the entire course of a match and make winning much, much more possible. Now that you understand what we've talked about in this lesson, watch this exchange. This exchange, a lot of times I've heard kind of casual tennis fans, this kind of exchange will just drive them crazy. I've heard dozens of times people say, why do they keep hitting it back to each other? Well, there's kind of multiple layers to that in this particular match, but you see Novak and Medvedev here just grinding it out on the same pattern. You can see there's like a lot going on beneath the surface here with Novak and Medvedev. But the short answer is they both know that this is the high percentage pattern. When Novak hits this shot, Medvedev is setting up a little bit on the other side of the court. And every time that Medvedev hits a shot in this exchange, he's on his backhand side. Novak is making his split step a little bit on the other side of the court. And they both understand that for the other person to go down the line, they're taking on more risk, they're exposing themselves. And so they have an intuitive understanding of this. Most amateur tennis players do not, and so they make a lot of errors when it could be their opponent making the mistakes. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you should only hit cross court. In fact, in the first lesson in this series, I pointed out some really good times and reasons to hit down the line. You should be hitting down the line, but just when it makes sense. And when you don't have some kind of advantage in the rally, you should probably hit it back cross court, because all of these pattern things work in your favor and you maximize the chances that your opponent makes some kind of mistake when you know where to stand and when and why. So if this lesson was helpful, do me a favor and click the like button. And you can put these things into practice right now. Go out and play a match right now and go practice these positioning keys at the net, at the baseline, and you'll probably, I hope, be just absolutely shocked at how well they work. Your opponents will start making more errors. If you have the chance to do that, come back to this video and please report back. Just tell me what happened. What was your experience when you started positioning yourself in the correct spot and being more conscious and aware and purposeful about where you put yourself on the court. This series isn't over yet. In the next video, I'll be giving some specific strategies and patterns that you can use to draw more errors out of your opponents. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Or if it's already been published, you can click it right over here. You can also click part 1 in this video that talks all about where to aim to draw more errors from your opponents. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.